Hello, my folks, my dear friends, dear audiences. Welcome to the show. Jack Chow on the East-West Show, trying to cover everywhere we can lay our eyes upon. Speaking of our day-to-day life, gasoline price is one of the focuses. And we started to notice that to the most part of 2016, now we're talking about almost June, we see the price, kind of a solid in between 260 to 280 area, within that area. And versus that, we're hearing a lot about the crude oil prices. So to get to the point, also to get a relatively clearer picture to what we are expecting towards the summer, or even the third or even the fourth quarter of 2016, what shall we see? I have my friend, Mr. Drexel Smith, to join me. He is a energy specialist, and he holds the Drexel Smith Consulting Group. And not only does he do the consultation work for the United States, for within the United States, internationally he is involved. He was and still is involved in some nuclear energy programs, such as with China, and to which he has a huge credit. So, Drexel, welcome to the show.
Jack, it's good to see you.
All right, good to see you again. Do it that way, right?
It's always fun to be on your program.
All right, good. It's been quite some time.
It's been too long.
Too long, right? You've been traveling everywhere.
Life has been good.
Okay, so now we're talking about gasoline price, and we can't talk about it without having to take a look at the crude side, right? So what is happening in the crude oil market?
It drives a lot of things. Let's begin with a little bit in the Middle East. Crude overall, the average per barrel dropped to its biggest low in a long time, under $40 a barrel.
Yeah.
And currently it's popping close to 50, depending on which crude you track, whether it's sweet crude or this or that. But the average of crude is in the high 40s right now. As a matter of fact, it's even up a little bit again today. From a Middle Eastern standpoint, the Saudis have continued to pump. And the general theory has been to keep the price of crude down, to make competitive and alternative oil methods, such as the fracking in the United States, not valuable. Remember, we talked on previous shows that for the fracking process to be profitable, you probably need crude something higher than $60 a barrel. When it's under 40, the cracking process is not productive. So Saudi, in their strategy of pump, keep the prices lower for crude, has had a major impact. And we've seen in the past 2 years a number of the frackers and people connected with the fracking business virtually close their door. Many of them temporarily, some of them permanently. Then the Saudis tried to put together a consortium of the Middle Eastern countries looking at let's stabilize our pumping a little bit. Well, that didn't play out well because we have a new wild card at the table called Iran. With the agreement with Iran, it allows their oil to become on the international market. And the Saudis didn't want to make an overall agreement that included Iran. So we still have everybody doing their own thing. We still have chaos in Libya. We still have the Saudis pump. And we have an unknown situation with what's happening with Iran. And everybody else is standing back saying, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Venezuela
In other
and
words, yeah, go ahead.
Venezuela, Argentina, and Brazil are all suffering tremendously with these low crude prices. It's my personal view, I've said it on your show, I think many analysts agree that for the world oil stability and to enjoy a broad range of technologies to play in the marketplace, I still say crude needs to be $60 to $65 a barrel. And as long as it's under 50, we're going to see this questionable stability. And I think in the long term, Jack, it's a very sensitive issue. All it takes is for one domino to trip, and it trips the bunch, and you're going to see crude jump up.
We want to bring in a general basic understanding to our audiences about how this game is played, right? In other words, what you're saying is that for things to be stabilized, it needs some kind of a relative balance,
That's
right?
Exactly.
For that, you would pick a number, so 60 to 65 per barrel as for crude, on average.
That allows all of the oil players to play. Yeah,
Okay.
whether you're fracking, pumping.
Okay. Now with the Saudis and with the Iranians kind of pumping excessively,
We have an
it brought
oversupply.
it down. It brought the price down to we were one time below 30, 29 something.
That was its absolute lowest in many, many years, but
Yeah.
it was in the 30s.
Yeah, remember last time you and I were on the show, we
Yeah.
were talking about $29.80.
Yeah, it could be.
That was that extremely low.
Yep.
That's abnormal, right?
Oh, yeah, for today's world in pricing, that's an abnormally, artificially low price.
I see.
Okay.
I see.
Many people argue that $50 is still a good number because remember, many of the large facilities in the Middle East, especially those that are managed by Aramco, have been in place for a long time. They're all depreciated. Many people say that the Saudis can make money at $15 a barrel. Okay? Because they just pump, the facilities are completely depreciated.
Is it because their oils are shallow,
Yes.
or their
And the
equipments are
equipment is all in
cheaper or
place.
something?
Yeah. It's easy to
All
pump
right.
it shallow, and the equipment is all there.
After all, to apply to the very basic rules, whoever remains to be more competitive gets the market, right?
To
If they
some
can do it, if they can do it, why don't the world just let them do it?
Well, and remember, what dropped oil from $110 a barrel down to 60 was the dump in the marketplace of the U.S. fracking technology. Okay?
All right.
So all of a sudden, we became a major player in oil again when we developed this technology. The downside is it's a far more expensive technology to mine the oil than just pumping the shallow, plentiful.
So
crude
when
out of
we
the Middle
dumped
East.
that, the fraction technology to the market, did we do it at a loss or at a gain?
No, I think the people were making profit. Well, it dropped from 110 to $80 a barrel, and everybody was making money except the airlines. The airlines were losing big money.
Who?
The airplanes.
Oh, the airplanes.
The
Okay.
airlines.
Uh-huh.
Remember, that's another wild card to this whole deal, that now that crude is in the 40s, close to 50, the airlines are making billions because their biggest cost is fuel.
All
So
right. Now-
there's a lot of tangential
Yeah,
impacts
I'm trying to.
this.
I'm not trying to mislead you. I'm
no.
trying to take a different look, though. When the crude price goes to around like $30 below or above, something like that, would that be good for for the global economy?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Why not?
No, because it excludes other technologies to play, and we go back to where we have been on many cycles throughout the last 75 years, a dependency on cheap oil, and the cheap oil comes from the Middle
That
East.
doesn't sound legit. Take a cell phone, for example, right? Whoever has the lowest cost gets to play the job. Play the game.
Yeah,
So
you're
now
talking
that
about
you have a higher cost, you don't blame us for, like Saudis, like Iranians, like any of those Middle East countries, though they have the shallow supplies as their crude, and they have cheaper equipment or even cheaper labor. So why do we let them play? So unless they have limited supply.
A finished product and its place in the marketplace, like electronics, to a natural resource for which the world depends on for the majority of its energy source and needs, from everything from heating to airplane fuel to automobiles, and drives much of the world economy. To allow that to simply go to the cheapest pumper today makes you an absolute victim tomorrow of what happens. They are in control. We learned in the 1970s that when somebody gets upset and says, "We're done," turns off the spigot, people get in line for gasoline. I remember being in line for gasoline for hours because there was no supply. I would rather pay a fair price that allows all technologies to survive in the marketplace, so I'm not victim to somebody that says, I'm going to turn on and off the spigot to my friends, to politics, to whatever. You're talking about
You were talking about from a strategic control
Absolutely.
of the world resources.
Absolutely.
All right. Of the thing that moves machinery around.
That's right.
So you do not want them to be the only players.
That's right.
I see. All right. Okay. Now, my dear audience, today with my good friend, Drexel Smith, we are talking about our energy supplies, which now still remains the only number one gasoline supplies regarding crude oil pumping. We started this time from the pumping of the crude, not the pump at the pump station, right? So with me,
That's where it begins. It begins getting out of the ground.
All right, with my friend Drexel Smith, we're touching base, and let's take a short moment out. When we come back, we'll see the other side of the story, please. Hello, dear folks, my dear audiences, welcome back to the show. My dear gasoline consumers, fellow gasoline consumers, welcome back to the show. We're talking about your gasoline. We're talking about crude oil, which gasoline is made out of. So with me is my good friend, Mr. Drexel Smith, an energy specialist, and he promotes the nuclear energy most of the time. Today, we're talking about gasoline. We drag him down a little bit, not putting your leg. We're just trying to get to the point. Now,
Jack, if I could, I'd like to come back to our last segment for
sure.
one more perspective. Some may say that a lower price of crude, let the Saudis pump, helps the world economy. But look at the impact of the country of Brazil. Brazil is bordering bankruptcy. Brazil is just gone through a major getting rid of their current president. They don't have the funds to finish all the Olympic Village for the Olympics that'll be just in a few months away. And a big part of all of this is the fact that when crude oil dropped to such a short number, all their revenue projections went crazy. They don't have the revenue. I think that it's important to recognize that when you base a world economy on a prediction, and again, the world prediction was crude to be above $60 a barrel, that again allows all the countries, all the technologies to at least have a play. It keeps everybody in a checkmate, to use the chess game term,
Yeah, I know.
situation. It doesn't allow anybody to be in a major control and everybody can play.
Okay.
I think from a geopolitical thing perspective, on a world resource like oil, it's really important.
All right. So you're talking about once again, we're playing God. You think like a God, right? You want everybody
no.
to get into the
I
game.
think like a
right?
businessman.
No. I'm talking about purely from the market perspective.
Yep.
I'm totally talking about competition. Whoever has the strongest compatibility gets to play the game, play the lead, whatever. And then, of course, and then there are calls to resume the balance, whatever. That's from different point of view. I do agree with you. From a strategic point of view, we do not want those, which is the only supply of energy so far, number one energy so far, to be in the hands of people in an area that is so unstable.
But remember, Jack, this is about competition, and the Saudis can continue to play this game of underpricing everybody in the marketplace, so people buy their oil, and eventually they're done. They're no longer a player. They no longer have any more to play with. They can play that game,
Okay, very good.
but it affects their economy too. And are they going to think short term or long term? So, no, I'm not in a godlike position. I disagree with any government getting involved in the pricing of oil. I'm talking about, and answering your question, wouldn't it be better to allow everybody to have access to cheap gas? And I'm saying to you, to artificially have somebody pump, that artificially drops the price of gas, especially for the United States, when most of the rest of the world is paying 2 and 3 times our price for gas, is sort of nonsensical. It's a short run view.
Okay, all right.
That's my point.
So let the disagreement remain. After all, what happened had happened, right?
Well,
and when they did start to pump, use your term, and they did bring the price down to a point, a devastating point.
And our
During
gasoline at the pump dropped. Our gasoline dropped
has
from
anybody
$4 to
benefited
$2.
from? Such as, did we take the opportunity, grab some opportunity to build our reserve, to get as much import as we could while prices was low?
Yeah,
When United States is concerned?
not really. We're feeding it directly to the consumer. So what's happened in our economy is we have investors and people engaged in the oil business, the fracking business, the high pressure equipment business. People like Schlumberger are in deep trouble. All of those fortunes have been lost. On the upside, the airlines are making billions for the first time in 10 years. So you've got this equilibrium that happens. You have one industry that takes the hit, and yet another industry is making all kinds of money for their investors.
To support your principle, the air ticket did not go down.
Exactly. And for the first time, the stock value has gone up.
Very good. All right. Okay, now, to look at the same thing from different perspective, though, I ask you about taking advantage of this situation to build up their reserve. If the United States did not take this opportunity, did China do anything to build their reserve?
Jack, honestly, I have not reviewed, and I'm not knowledgeable. I haven't tracked the reserve status.
And Russia, of course,
I just haven't looked at that. That information is available.
I see.
I just haven't looked at that.
Well, when I was doing my homework, I learned that China did not waste the opportunity of building up their reserve they push up to something like 8 million barrels per day of import, which is really smart. So
they're reserving that
of
level?
course, while the price is low, right? Okay. So I wonder why wouldn't the United States do something? And on the other hand, we do our cracking, whatever, or fractional technology at a higher cost in order to.
Well, nobody will buy it at the higher cost. If you can buy crude for $45 a barrel, why would you consider buying it at 60? And the frackers can't last very long at selling oil on the competitive marketplace. Remember, oil is sold competitively. Every minute, the price of oil changes. If you look at any of the exchanges, it's all commodity change.
So for the folks who are investing in the oil business for a stock exchange, for oil stock, so are they losing money or are they making money?
Well, if you bought when oil was selling for over $50 a barrel, and it's selling for 45, you've lost money.
Tremendously, right?
But it's paper money until it all balances out.
I see.
Again, my prophecy is looking on the horizon. I think oil will be back at $65 a barrel.
Okay, speaking of that devil.
In the relatively
Yeah.
near term. Now, is that 6 months, a year, 2? I'm just saying to you that the pump that artificially drove the price down, artificial in relative comparison to the other countries and technologies, I think is a short run issue.
So if the dropping down is artificial and the tactic now to bring it up is also artificial, it's kind of artificial war, right? Anyway.
Well, exactly.
Sure. All right, speaking of that devil, we'll take a short moment now. When we come back, we'll find out how much are we going to see going into the summer. So we as consumers, I would say I care more about my gasoline price at the pump rather than back then how much they trade each other, right? So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Welcome back to the discussion about gasoline versus crude oil and versus the summer. That's why we say crude gas / summer. And this is the title of the show. We're trying to find out with the situation now, what kind of price or pricing we're going to see towards the summer. Right now we're in May, we're in June, early June. So how do you want to see the summer, please, sir? With my friend Drexel Smith, an energy specialist, we would like to find the prophecy.
Well, I'm just going to share what I think is the general view. Remember, in happy California,
Happy California, I like that term.
we pay a premium because we have oil that require a gasoline that requires special refining for our air quality.
Summer blend.
The summer blend, right. So whereas the national average for gasoline across our country is probably 50 cents lower than what you and I can pay here in Southern California. Okay?
All right.
So we automatically pay a premium. A year ago, you quizzed me heavily why the price of gasoline was so high when oil was beginning to drop.
Yeah, that was
etc.
where, yeah.
And I shared with you it was a supply-demand problem, not from the crude oil, but from the refineries. Remember, we talked about we had a refinery fire, we had another refinery going through major renovation, et cetera, and you had a supply problem. So what was driving the higher price a year ago of gasoline was a supply issue from the refineries here in California of the summer blend. I don't see that circumstance this year. That's why we're paying under $3 a gallon for gasoline. Okay?
All right,
The
okay.
refineries are working.
That's exactly where I was confused.
Yeah.
Because it was exactly at the time when crude oil price was going 29, 30, below 30 anyway.
And
We
yet
were
our
paying about $3.
exactly.
All right, so that is really
And it was a
where I got
refinery issue.
confused. The refinery issue.
Yeah, we had multiple. We had one closed for rebuild, another with major repairs, and then we had the big fire that shut down yet another refinery. None of those issues exist right now. Those refineries are here, they're working, and that's why the gasoline has dropped from yesterday to today again.
Yeah, please help me understand a little better to develop from that concept. Are you talking about the supply demand are double featured in this area? You're talking about supply versus demand in the crude market, and also talking about supply demand in the refinery market.
Well,
Double featured.
yep. In the beginning, we have this black stuff that comes out of the ground,
All right, that's the crude.
okay, the crude, and it comes out of the ground at varying levels of quality.
Okay. I
Some
know.
crude is called sweet crude
Yeah.
because it requires
It has more juice in it.
less refining to get to an end product
All right.
than other crude. Some crude has very high in other chemicals that have to be refined and managed.
Take out.
Okay? So the black stuff that comes out of the ground is in varying qualities. It goes to a refinery. The refiners make the crude for heavy crude, very little purification needed for ships. Less refining than gasoline, but much higher refining than the heavy oil, bunker oil for ships is the kerosene for airplanes.
All right.
And then you have another type of oil that's used for heating. And obviously part of this process bleeds off gas to feed our gas supply. And at the end of the refinery row comes a variety of specialty fluids, including gasoline. And if you're happy to live in happy California, especially Southern California, we even have to take yet another refining process for the air quality blend to manage our air quality. So from the refiner standpoint, okay, depending on what they're going to make, depends on the expense of that process. So what you have then is crude to the refinery, and what the refinery is capable to make, where the demand is the demand for airplane fuel, bunker oil for ships, is it oil for heating, is it gasoline, is it other types of materials they get, and they're feeding those markets based on demand. Then the next step is the distributor. Remember, we had a talk on a couple of shows back where the distributors were dipping in, charging, because there was a major distribution problem. There wasn't enough trucks and truckers, and there was a stick in the supply between the refinery and the retailer. And then you got the retail guy, the guy that owns the gas station. If he buys gas at a certain dollar per price, he wants to sell it as a profit. So here's what happens. He buys a load, and that load, let's say, equals $2.50 a gallon. And he wants to make 10 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Okay? So he needs to sell it at $2.60. The guy across the street just got a load for $2.40. he makes 10 cents. He puts on his sign 10 cents cheaper. Where are you going to buy your gas?
Yeah, I know. I start to see this picture thing of supply and demand. Even with the refinery supply versus demand situation, you're talking about different demands.
And you're talking about different parts
Different
of the market.
demands. Each of the demand refers to a market
Exactly.
themselves, right? And in addition, you have the distributors thrown into the whole mess of the picture. When everybody wants to make a few bucks, and it makes the picture more complicated rather than the crude or refinery versus demand themselves.
Exactly.
Am I right?
It's not that simple. So if airplanes all of a sudden, for whatever reason, lose demand from air travel, there's another bomb threat today, this morning at LAX, that's shutting down air traffic. With that, are people going to say for the summer, I just don't want to get on an airplane? So you have a 10% drop in demand for air travel because people don't feel safe. All of a sudden, the airline's saying, I don't need kerosene for my jets. Okay?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the refineries say, let's don't
reduce.
make as much kerosene.
Let's
Gasoline, make more gas. All of a sudden,
That's a-
more supply in the marketplace.
That's a chain reaction.
Gas gets cheaper. What was the influence? Was it crude? No.
No.
Was it the refineries?
Yeah.
Yeah, the refineries changed the demand.
It was not because of refineries, right?
And the cycle could go in reverse. Air travel could go significantly up.
Yeah.
Airlines can bring on some more airplanes. I want more kerosene. They have long-term agreements.
All right.
They make more kerosene, shorten the gas supply. You and I will pay more at the pump.
All right. Okay. All right.
It's
of
all
course,
interrelated,
Of course,
see?
yeah. And this oil business is more complicated than anything.
Well, it's very
You're not talking
very
about the supply demand and the shoe market. You have only 2 feet, right? You can wear as many pairs of shoes.
most of us
as
only
you
have
need,
to.
like that. And there is, of course, demand and supply situation, but not as much as we see in the oil industry, the whole thing, right? Okay, now, with my friend Drexel Smith, energy specialist, we're talking about as a matter of fact, analysis of into the oil market versus the gasoline market. And in the gasoline market, both gasoline market and the oil market, we find out how the demand and supply work in this whole mess, call it that way. Okay, anyway, let's take a very short moment out. When we come back, we really have to come to the point about how much are we expecting to see during this summer as consumers, us consumers of gasoline. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow with a good friend, Drexel Smith, energy specialist. Mr. Drexel Smith is the founder and the CEO of Drexel Smith Consulting Group, who is involved with lots of nuclear programs, energy programs. One of the biggest ones was with China, for which he has a huge credit. And he's now, of course, we're talking about the gasoline, which has nothing to do with the nuclear energy. We wanted to find out what exactly are we going to see as gasoline price at the pump this summer. So to get to the point, though, so how do you expect, please?
In this industry, begin to get very hard. As we talked in the first 2 segments, you have the international relationship with crude. Then you have the relationship of crude to the refiners.
Yeah.
And the stability of the refiners. And the competition for gasoline to other fuel uses.
Yeah.
So as we talked, each of those sort of has a little bit of balance. Okay? Now you get down to the gasoline consumer. what have we seen in the past 2 years? A major dump in the marketplace of very small automobiles that have doubled, in some cases tripled, the miles per gallon for gasoline. So what does this mean to the gasoline suppliers? It means that to sell the same amount of gasoline per month to more people with little cars, they need more people with cars. So the question is, as we see here in especially Southern California, a larger amount of smaller cars, much higher mileage, we're still seeing a growth in the market because there's more people driving. Now that's being offset a little bit as we bring on more public transportation. Just since our last show, the Gold Line opened that allows another extension here for our area to get to Los Angeles.
And I heard last night that
So
the
things,
light rail to Santa Monica has declared
Exactly.
open. Yes.
so things that will drive the demand lower, less demand for gas, are more high mileage cars, the continued growth of electrical cars, and the continued impact of public transportation. All of those will lower the demand for gasoline. On the other side, we are continuing to see more people move into the area, which increases the number of drivers. And we're continuing to see our economy rebound and grow healthier, which also increases demand.
Demand, yes.
So, as I sit on the table with this crystal ball,
You're talking about a balance.
my view is, unless, I'm going to qualify this, unless there's a major international incident that dramatically
I see.
affects crude, and there's no major refinery problem that affects their situation, my view is I think we can see stability at the pump in the under $3 through the summer. That's my prediction.
All right, good.
But I qualify it with the crude,
Okay.
and let me give you another big concern.
When you say with the cruise, though, let me
Yeah.
just insert one thing. When you say the cruise, though, you mentioned about expecting the crude to be above $50, right?
I think crude
to
will
a
stabilize at
reasonable-
close above 60
Yeah, to
over the next
to
2 years.
reasonably get the level of 60 or even above, like that.
Over the next 2
So
years.
are we qualifying your analysis just now
You said for the
to
summer.
that level?
No.
No.
You asked me to make a prediction for the summer.
The summer.
The
You mean
next
the
3
summer.
months.
I see. For the summer 3 months versus the crude
Next
of
1 to
close
2
to
years.
50, of close to 50,
Yeah.
to 2 to 3 years,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah,
All right.
1.5 to 2 years,
Uh-huh.
I predict will be above 60 at the
I see.
crude level.
Okay.
But remember, the price of crude change is not proportional to what you pay at the pump. There's too many what you pay at the pump as a consumer.
I see
There's
after
too many
this
other
analysis.
steps.
Yes.
For crude to go from 48, 49, where it is today, the average crude, to 60, okay, will not necessarily be a proportional change at the pump. I think you stand a far bigger
You're
risk.
not talking about a proportionate parallel going up and down with the two. It may go, well, can it go opposite ways?
Crude can go up without a dramatic change at the pump
I see.
because
All
there's
right.
so many other players that affect your price at the pump.
All right. With all taken into consideration, though, from either a strategic point of view or from a green global earth point of view, so this solution, the long-term solution, is energy reform. Am I
Well,
right?
Of course, you've heard me say repeatedly, the idea of burning fuel in a car is not smart. I mean, for the long term, 1 to 200
We burn fuel for
on
everything.
years,
Yes, yes,
we
yes,
just shouldn't be doing it. There's other alternatives. But let me come back for a moment, Jack, please, to the other caveat I mentioned, because it's not insignificant. We have not built a new refinery in California in 50 years.
Oh, for 50 years
Our
we
refineries
haven't
are
built
very,
any
very,
new
very
refinery.
old. And the regulators for air quality and pollution management and everything else makes the investment for a refinery very hard. We just saw a major, in the past year, a major refinery sold because they didn't want to be in the business anymore in California. So I think when you look at the chain of events from international stability to affecting crude prices to other forms of crude to the transportation distribution to the refineries to the distribution to the whole retailers, when you look at that chain, it's my opinion the weakest link is the refiners. Because they're old.
In other words, we can say that the stability or balance has been reached because there is no enough stimulants for them to build up refineries.
Jack, my argument is a year ago you were very upset over the price of crude going down, but the price at the pump going up dramatically. That happened because of refineries. You had one shut down for repair and a major one shut down for a fire.
Yeah. One repair, one fire.
Okay.
And that
So
was, we went to
it's very sensitive.
385, 389 something.
And
yes,
that will
that's
dramatically and overnight impact the price at the pump. Far more than crude is the stability of the refineries. And we need to figure out, are we in love with them and we decide we need them?
Are you
and
saying to
we
get,
want to rebuild them? Or are we going to let them be subject to all of this regulatory?
are you saying to get the stability of gasoline price, more refinery is the answer?
Yes, for that piece of the chain.
Yeah.
When
see
I
what you
described
mean.
it as a chain, and in my opinion, the weakest link for us here in Southern California, with the specialty summer blend that we need, the weakest link, in my opinion, is the refiners.
I see. All right.
A major incident on a refinery
All right.
will
To my-
dramatically
yeah.
impact your gas.
All right, it is very confusing, but I'm glad that we got some numbers to hold on to towards the summer. That is, for the summer 3 months, at least we can expect that our gasoline price would be within the $3 range, right, plus minus a little bit. So with my good friend Drexel Smith, an energy specialist, we're trying to take a peek into the future, short future, about the gasoline price with the crude price just said to be
Enjoy the summer.
enjoy the summer, said to be resumed. While doing that, we want to enjoy the summer. So my audience, thank you very much for watching the show, and to my friend Mr. Smith, thank you very much for coming here.
It's good to be with you.